In early April of 2025, the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office in Alabama announced charges against 41-year-old Amy Nicole Wiggington, who reportedly admitted to being intimate with a student on 2 occasions while employed as a high school cafeteria worker. Court documents do not specify the victim's age, but state that the individual is less than 19 years old. While the state's legal consent age is 16, the law allows for criminal charges involving victims up to the age of 18 when the perpetrator is a school employee. According to reports, the married suspect confessed to having intercourse with the victim on 2 separate occasions in March, while some news reports state that the incident occurred on school grounds. The Daily Mail reported that the encounters happened at Wiggington's Rogersville home. Wiggington was charged accordingly and placed on administrative leave as the investigation continued, and has since been fired from her job. She posted a $100,000 bond on the day of her arrest and remains free amid the ongoing case. The alleged child predator is currently awaiting a preliminary hearing, which is scheduled for June 23rd. The Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office declined a request for comment from local media, while the Lauderdale County Board of Education reassured the public that it was cooperating fully with law enforcement. Number 24. Sergio Guardia. During a trip away from her Lynchburg, Virginia residence in November 2023, Marie Colomna was awakened by a cell phone notification alerting her to a breach of her home security system. There was a man in her house and she quickly recognized him as her former pastor, Sergio Guardia. The footage showed the suspect entering Colomna's home and going into her daughter's bedroom. Colomna called law enforcement and made it clear that Guardia did not have permission to be there, as she had cut all ties with him years earlier in 2016. More specifically, Colomna had left the church because Guardia repeatedly made her feel uncomfortable. Speaking with local station WSET-TV, Colomna explained that the unwelcome behavior began right after her divorce, when Guardia started visiting her house frequently to help her through the difficult time. It quickly became clear that he wanted more than friendship, and when Colomna complained about his conduct, the church and its members allegedly took the pastor's side. The stalking went on for an estimated 6 years before Guardia was captured on camera and a criminal case was finally pursued. Following an investigation, Guardia was charged with 2 counts of felony breaking and entering and 1 count of misdemeanor stalking. The judge overseeing the case granted orders of protection to Colomna and her 2 kids, which Guardia's defense attorney said that the defendant planned on appealing. But the case ended in a victory for Colomna in March of 2025 when a jury found 49-year-old Guardia guilty as charged. He's currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for August 20th. Number 23. Ashley Anderson. In June of 2022, police responded to an incident on Clearwater Beach in Florida, where a 21-year-old bikini-clad woman named Ashley Anderson had gotten into an altercation with a family. Anderson accused the woman of punching her in the face but was unable to explain why. She denied hitting the woman back, calling herself the least confrontable person despite having a very confrontational demeanor. The family on the other side of the altercation told police that Anderson lost her temper because she thought they were staring at her, but they were actually focused on watching their kids who were playing in the water. According to an arrest report, Anderson's friend admitted that they had been drinking all day. Anderson's sister, who was also at the scene, stated that Anderson doesn't like police. The suspect's belligerent behavior only worsened as an officer tried to calm her down. At one point, the cop threatened to call Anderson's parents, and she began screaming about her parents were dead and how she did CPR on them. Deputies handcuffed Anderson due to her increasingly agitated behavior, and the decision was ultimately made to take her into custody as she continued screaming and challenging the victims to a fight. She initially dropped down onto the sand and refused to walk, but then could be heard screaming at officers as she was placed into the back of a squad car. In police body cam footage, the woman who Ashley had accused of shoving her stated that she didn't want any drama and that she was just looking out for her grandkids. She chose not to press charges, but the police arrested her on a misdemeanor disorderly intoxication charge. 2 months after the incident, Anderson pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct. She was sentenced to time served and fined just over $500. Number 22. Casey Viser. Former Mecklenburg County, North Carolina judge Charles Casey Viser resigned 2 years into his 8-year term in 2022. In April of 2025, he was pulled over for having fake license plates. During a search of his car, police found cocaine, paraphernalia, and an open container of alcohol. The 52-year-old was charged with 2 felony possession counts and was released from jail hours later after posting a $2,500 bond. In early May, Viser failed to appear in court for a probable cause hearing. The judge issued a warrant for his arrest and revoked his bond. According to the most recent available updates, he remains at large. Number 21. Armando Fogaca. Brazilian-born personal trainer and fitness influencer Armando Fogaca has hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers where he posts photos and videos displaying impressive feats of strength like crushing watermelons and bending cooking pans. But the 37-year-old recently made news headlines for rather unflattering reasons following his arrest in Miami Beach for hitting a cop and fleeing from law enforcement. An arrest report states that Fogaca was on a motorcycle with his wife at 9 o'clock in the morning when he made an illegal turn on red. An officer stepped into the road and ordered him to pull over. He stopped briefly, but then hit the gas, knocking the cop onto the pavement as he sped off toward the MacArthur Causeway. He crashed into a vehicle before he could get very far, bringing what would have likely been a high-speed pursuit to an abrupt end. The officer was treated at a nearby hospital for fractured ribs and other injuries. Fogaca's wife was also hospitalized after being thrown from the bike during the wreck and sustaining traumatic injuries. According to court documents, the motorcycle was going between 80 and 90 miles per hour shortly before it crashed. In addition to hitting a cop and speeding, Fogaca didn't have a driver's license in the first place and therefore shouldn't have been on the road. He was charged with felony counts of leaving the scene of a crash causing serious bodily injury, fleeing and eluding an officer, and reckless driving causing serious bodily injury, driving without a license causing serious bodily injury, and aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer. Footage from Fogaca's initial court hearing shows the influencer crying as he goes before the judge, showing him in a much sadder state than the ultra-confident image he exudes on social media. Records show that he's being held without bond at the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center and that he's being detained on an immigration hold, in addition to his criminal charges. Number 20. Brandon Kasemeier. In January of 2024, 39-year-old Jamie Kasemeier was found dead inside the Waukon, Iowa home of her estranged husband, 40-year-old Brandon Kasemeier. Brandon himself was nowhere to be found, however. His absence, coupled with the bullet wounds to Jamie's face, made him a likely candidate for being responsible for his wife's death. A quick look into the former couple's history of police interactions only furthered suspicions of Brandon's involvement in Jamie's murder. Over a decade-long period leading up to the crime, Jamie had accused Brandon of domestic abuse and threatening to kill her on numerous occasions. In 2016, Brandon had pleaded guilty to a harassment charge from the previous year in exchange for several other counts being dropped. 2 years later, in 2018, Jamie accused Brandon of choking her and telling her that she would be leaving their home in a body bag if she got law enforcement involved in their issues. Less than 24 hours after Jamie's body was found, authorities arrested Brandon 900 miles away in Loveland, Colorado. Following his capture, Brandon Kasemeier was extradited to Iowa on a first-degree murder charge. He was initially scheduled to go to trial in May of 2024, but he pleaded guilty to a reduced second-degree murder charge as part of a plea deal in April of that year. Just weeks later, however, Brandon withdrew his guilty plea. The original charge of first-degree murder was reinstated, and a trial was scheduled for January of 2025. As the date approached, the trial was pushed further back to May of 2025. According to the most recent available update, the defense's second motion to have the trial moved out of the county has been denied. The defense had argued that it was unlikely that an impartial jury could be found in the county where the crime occurred, while the judge noted in his decision that nearly half of the local residents who were surveyed for possible placement in the jury had not even heard of the case. It's unclear whether the trial will commence as scheduled or if it has been further delayed. Number 19. Christopher Schurr. 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya left the Democratic Republic of the Congo to escape violence. He resettled in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where, in an ironic and tragic twist, he was fatally shot by a police officer during what began as a routine traffic stop in April of 2022. The officer, Christopher Schurr, pulled Lyoya over for having license plates that were registered to another car. Body cam footage captured the moment the situation went awry, when Schurr noticed Lyoya walking away and ordered him to get back in his vehicle. During the struggle that ensued, Lyoya appeared to grab Schurr's stun gun. Schurr's body camera was deactivated during the scuffle before Schurr fired his service weapon. But the shooting was captured on video by Lyoya's passenger, who recorded the encounter with their cell phone, and by a nearby doorbell camera. In the footage, Schurr appeared to shoot Lyoya while on top of the man who was face down on the ground. The bullet wound to the back of Lyoya's head aligned with the events in the video, and Schurr was fired from his job 2 months after the incident. He was also charged with second-degree murder and has maintained his innocence all along, arguing through his attorney that he acted in self-defense during a moment of legitimate fear for his life. During 36-year-old Schurr's trial in the spring of 2025, the defense pointed out that Schurr had repeatedly ordered Lyoya to drop his stun gun, but that Lyoya refused to follow orders. Prosecutors argue that Lyoya never posed a serious threat to Schurr, even after grabbing the officer's stun gun, and that Schurr's use of force was therefore unjustified. After deliberating for 4 days, the jury announced that it was hopelessly deadlocked, and the judge declared a mistrial. According to Schurr's lawyer, jurors had voted overwhelmingly in favor of acquittal, but there were holdouts on the other side. The prosecutor admitted that he wasn't surprised by the outcome, given the complexity of the incident, and he has not yet decided whether he plans to retry the case. Number 18. Terrance Trent Vos. In addition to being classified as a habitual offender in the state of Utah, 35-year-old Terrance Trent Vos was once named public enemy number 1 by the Salt Lake Metro Gang Unit. His arrest record dates at least as far back as 2008, when he was apprehended in Las Vegas for a gang-related shooting that had occurred in Salt Lake City. In May of 2021, Vos was implicated in the shooting death of his girlfriend, 32-year-old Shandon Nicole Scott, whose bullet-riddled body was found inside a wrecked car along Interstate 80. He was also accused of trying to carjack a witness prior to his arrest. Vos outwardly denied any involvement in Scott's murder, but he admitted to shooting the victim after a fight during a jailhouse phone call with a friend. Following a 6-day trial in March of 2025, a jury found Vos guilty of 6 felonies, including aggravated murder, 3 counts of felony discharge of a firearm, possession of a dangerous weapon as a restricted person, and obstruction of justice. He's currently awaiting sentencing and has already run into more trouble for threatening corrections officers just days after his conviction in the murder case. Court documents state that Vos became agitated when jail staff ended his meeting with a seemingly intoxicated visitor. He's accused of biting and trying to kick members of the Critical Incident Response Team, which was brought in to get him under control. 2 days later, Vos allegedly threatened to have people he knows on the street come after some corrections officers who told him that he was being moved to a separate unit away from his brother, who was convicted in an unrelated killing. He's now facing additional charges of threat of terrorism, damaging a jail cell, 2 counts of attempted assault of an officer, and failing to disperse. If convicted, Vos will face a penalty enhancement on each charge for being a habitual offender. Number 17. Erika Ballou. 52-year-old Clark County, Nevada Judge Erika Ballou is no stranger to controversy. She first made news headlines in 2022 amid calls for her resignation over a comment she had made to a criminal defendant in her courtroom. Ballou had told the individual not to be around police officers because they might not survive, and that she herself lives by this policy. The Las Vegas Police Protection Association was quick to express its disapproval in a tweet, describing Ballou as a disgrace to the bench and urging her to resign immediately. Ballou refused to step down, and in early 2024 she landed at the center of an ethics investigation for 2 social media posts. One of the posts featured a photo of her in a hot tub with public defenders Shana Browers and Robson Hauser, along with a caption about Hauser being surrounded by certain female body parts. In another post, Ballou suggested that defendants who are not in custody deserve to have their cases vacated. The Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline filed complaints about both posts, alleging that the hot tub photo and its caption violated a judge's basic requirement to promote public confidence and avoid impropriety. In its complaint about the second social media post, the commission accused Ballou of violating the same policy, as well as a rule that judges should not engage in activities that could appear to undermine their independence, integrity, or impartiality. Ballou was censored, ordered to take a course about judicial ethics and social media use, and required to further familiarize herself with the topic. She's now facing a batch of new allegations from the commission, which is accusing her of 6 ethical violations. In short, the commission claims that Ballou showed an unfair bias toward 31-year-old Mia Kreisman, who pleaded guilty to a violent crime spree and was sentenced to prison time. Ballou ruled in favor of Kreisman's appeal and ordered her release from prison after concluding that she had received ineffective counsel. The decision was reversed by a higher court, which ordered Ballou to make a new ruling based on its guidelines, but she allegedly refused, resulting in the ongoing case against her. Number 16. Malik Webb. In what was later described as a completely random and violent spree, 1 person was killed and 2 were injured in Oxford Township, Michigan, in a series of shootings on Christmas Eve in 2024. The carnage began at around 6:30 p.m. when 71-year-old psychologist Barbara Wolf and her 38-year-old daughter stopped to help a stranded motorist. A man later identified by law enforcement as 29-year-old repeat offender Malik Webb had gotten his car stuck in a ditch. According to prosecutors, Wolf shouted out her window to see if the car's occupants were okay, at which point Webb pulled a gun and began shooting into the Good Samaritan's vehicle, striking both Wolf and her daughter. Wolf died from her wounds at a nearby hospital, while her daughter and a 3rd victim, who had also stopped to offer assistance, survived with serious injuries. Webb is facing a slew of charges including murder, 3 counts of assault with the intent to murder, felonious assault, carjacking, and multiple gun-related charges. He has a lengthy criminal history and had been released from prison just 13 months before the shooting, after serving 5.5 years on a gun charge and other crimes. According to records, Webb was freed before his max-out date, despite acquiring another weapons charge while behind bars, which begged the question of why the parole board voted in favor of cutting him loose. In April of 2025, Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald asked the judge overseeing the case to designate Webb as a super habitual offender, which would guarantee a minimum 25-year sentence in the event of a conviction. In the meantime, Webb remains held without bond at the Oakland County Jail as he awaits trial. Number 15. Harley Breer. Notorious repeat offender, Harley Breer has been in and out of Vermont's jails and prisons since the late 1980s. He has multiple convictions for violent crimes under his belt, including for a high-profile kidnapping case that occurred back in 1999. In 2011, Breer was accused of beating a woman he lived with, threatening her over voicemail, and stealing her car while on probation for a previous case. The case languished in court for the next 6+ years, during which time Breer was charged with additional crimes for writing 51 letters to his victim from jail. In 2017, Breer pleaded guilty to aggravated domestic assault, 2 counts of disturbing the peace by phone and violating his probation. He was sentenced to 45 years of probation in lieu of a suspended 20 to 45-year prison term. Prosecutors dropped numerous other charges as part of a plea agreement, which was reached after the state decided that it was uncomfortable with taking the case to trial. Breer, who was 47 at the time, claimed to be a changed man, but he landed back in custody the following year on kidnapping and assault charges. He was once again sentenced to probation despite being charged as a habitual offender, and he tested his limits with the law yet again in 2021 when he cut off his ankle monitor and went on the run. Authorities captured Breer a month later and he took another plea deal, resulting in a 4 to 10-year prison sentence followed by 20 years of probation. Breer reached his minimum release date in December 2024 and is being prepared for release, but remained incarcerated as of early 2025 when corrections officials announced that his release had been delayed. Number 14. Michael Rhinewalt. Mother of 5, Sharita Harris is lucky to be alive but suffers potentially lifelong injuries after being shot during a traffic stop in Jackson, Mississippi in August of 2022. She was riding as a passenger with a male friend when they were pulled over by 2 Capitol police officers. A bullet struck her in the back of the head during what police later described as an exchange of gunfire, after the driver allegedly opened fire on the officers. The driver later denied being armed and accused the officers of beating him. Both of the officers involved in the incident, Michael Rhinewalt and Jeffrey Walker, had been hired less than a month earlier amid an effort to combat the city's rising crime rate. They were both indicted on aggravated assault charges in December 2024, and the case is ongoing. Rhinewalt and Walker had initially remained on duty after the shooting involving Sharita Harris. The following month, Rhinewalt and another officer, Stephen Frederick, were involved in yet another shooting of a civilian during what began as an attempt at a routine traffic stop for running a red light in September 2022. 25-year-old Jalen Lewis was shot dead by law enforcement. Frederick and Rhinewalt claimed they had acted in self-defense, but in April of this year, a grand jury found that this does not appear to be a reasonable conclusion based on the circumstances. Both men have pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and are slated to go to trial later this year. Frederick resigned from the force in 2023 following a drunk driving arrest, and Rhinewalt is currently on unpaid administrative leave. Number 13. Justin Kula. In September 2023, Colorado parole officer Christine Guerin Sandoval and 2 colleagues approached a vehicle in Colorado Springs in an attempt to serve an arrest warrant on 41-year-old repeat offender Justin Kula. Instead of cooperating, Kula threw the car into reverse, striking Sandoval and another officer, then shifted into drive and fled the scene, hitting a parked truck along the way. Sandoval died from her injuries after being dragged 70 feet by Kula's car, while her less injured colleague survived. At the time of the hit and run, Kula already had 15 felony convictions across several states. His record dates back to the year 2000 and includes prior arrests for felony assault, menacing, extortion, assaulting police officers, and more. Prior to the incident resulting in Sandoval's death, he had most recently served a 2 to 4 year prison sentence starting in 2021 for several of the aforementioned charges, as well as a stalking conviction. During Kula's trial for manslaughter and other charges in early 2025, the defense argued that he was unaware that he was being approached by law enforcement because the parole officers were using unmarked cars. He supposedly believed that he was being robbed at gunpoint and had been set up by his ex-wife. The prosecution disputed these claims, arguing that Kula was well aware that he was being arrested when he made the regrettable decision to flee, hitting Sandoval in the process. After deliberating for less than an hour, the jury found the defendant guilty of manslaughter, vehicular homicide, assault, and leaving the scene of an accident causing death. Jurors also ruled to sentence Kula as a habitual offender, resulting in a 48-year prison sentence. Number 12. Antonio Williams. Antonio Williams was out on bond for a weapons charge in March of 2022, when he was charged with the New Year's Eve 2019 killing of his ex-girlfriend's mother, 60-year-old Melinda Bibbs, in Fort Bend County, Texas. Williams also allegedly shot his ex-girlfriend, 30-year-old Ebony Bibbs, who survived her injuries. Following his arrest, his original $500,000 bond was eventually lowered to $115,000, enabling Williams to secure his freedom despite also still being on bond for the weapons case. He pleaded guilty to the gun charge in September 2023 and took a plea deal, resulting in his release from prison in March of 2024. His bond for the murder case was reinstated, and less than 2 months later, he was accused of killing another girlfriend, 33-year-old Myanda Thomas. Police records state that Williams shot Thomas during an altercation on the street. Thomas was found dead at the scene, and Williams was located elsewhere with a non-fatal gunshot wound. According to the most recent available updates on the case from the summer of 2024, Williams was hospitalized with a gunshot wound but had been charged with murder. Number 11. Patrick Ibbotson. 38-year-old Patrick Ibbotson of Burlington, Vermont, has had nearly 300 police encounters with law enforcement in Vermont since 2016. Over the years, he has accumulated dozens of low-level charges, resulting in his repeated release into the community despite the habitual nature of his offending. Many of Ibbotson's charges are for stealing. According to some of his businesses, who are often business owners, he'll walk into a store, take something, get arrested, and steal from the same store again later that same day. Ibbotson was most recently arrested in October 2024 on charges of burglary, stalking, unlawful trespass, and violating the conditions of his release in a previous case. At the time, he already had 60 open criminal court cases in Chittenden County. It's clear to many that he's caught in a cycle, but it's unclear whether there's a way to break that pattern, and there are multiple points of view on how to approach his situation. During an interview with local station WCAX, Ibbotson admitted to being a habitual criminal. He also touched on his struggles with mental health and the reasons he committed his crimes, indicating that he sometimes acts out of need. But his victims understandably see the situation differently and are frustrated that Ibbotson keeps being released despite the extremely high probability that he'll offend again in the near future. Records show that he was released from custody under court order following his last arrest, indicating that for now the cycle continues. Number 10. Garet Davidson. In early May of 2025, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation charged former Metro Nashville Police Lieutenant Garet Davidson with official misconduct for allegedly leaking the writings of school shooter Aiden Hale in what became known as the Covenant shooting. Hale opened fire on innocent students and staff at a private religious school in March of 2023, killing 6 people and injuring 2 others. Hale also died in the shooting and therefore was no longer around to offer insight into why they committed such a heinous act. Investigators gleaned insight into Hale's mindset through the many writings they left behind about their disdain toward white Americans and their obsession with going down in history for committing a massacre. A judge blocked the public release of the writings in 2024, but someone leaked them to conservative publication the Tennessee Star. It is now believed that Davidson was the source who provided the documents to the Star. He's accused of taking numerous records without authorization, but is maintaining his innocence, claiming through his attorney that the information he provided was all part of the public record. The case is ongoing. Number 9. Sabrina Taylor. In March of 2025, a 46-year-old prison guard from Alabama named Sabrina Taylor was arrested for having an inappropriate relationship with an inmate. The fling reportedly occurred over a month-long period at the W.C. Holman Correction Facility in Atmore, which is located roughly 200 miles outside Birmingham. Taylor fell under investigation due to suspicions about contraband being smuggled into the facility. According to the authorities, she showered her incarcerated lover with gifts including Bluetooth headphones and an iPod. She corresponded with the inmate using a contraband phone he gave her, while the prisoner used another smuggled phone to receive and respond to her messages. Police also claim that Taylor gave the inmate a powdery substance but have not revealed whether it has been identified, and if so, what it is. Taylor is facing multiple charges including custodial misconduct and using an official position for personal gain, and is free pending the outcome of her case. Number 8. Michael Jernigan. During his 5-year career as a police officer and canine handler for the Smithfield Police Department in North Carolina, 41-year-old Michael Jernigan was named Officer of the Year. He earned the distinction in 2020, just a year before he left the force for reasons that are unclear. In May of 2025, Jernigan was arrested on an assault with a deadly weapon charge for allegedly shooting into his girlfriend's car following an argument that had occurred the previous day. The victim was physically unharmed, but her rear windshield was shattered by a .45 caliber bullet. Officers took Jernigan into custody several hours later after initially being unable to locate him. Following his arrest, Jernigan was released on a $50,000 unsecured bond. In the meantime, he's banned from having any contact with the victim or going near her home, school, or workplace. Number 7. Felipe Carlo Gomes. In April of 2025, a Belmont, California police officer named Felipe Carlo Gomes was arrested based on allegations that he forced himself on a victim. While digging into his past, ABC7's I-Team discovered that 35-year-old Gomes, a Brazilian national, had previously been arrested for a domestic violence incident against his wife in 2017. According to reports, Gomes beat his wife during a vacation to Florida after she received a text message from her ex-boyfriend. The charges against him were eventually dropped, which is serving as the basis of the Belmont police chief's explanation for his decision to hire Gomes. And while Gomes is not a US citizen, he has a work permit and was therefore legally eligible to work as a police officer. Under California law, at least 2 law enforcement agencies who had denied Gomez's application for employment called to warn the Belmont Police Department against hiring him due to the domestic violence incident. But the agency gave Gomes a chance anyway, and he lasted for 4 months on the force before his most recent arrest, which resulted in his termination from the force. Number 6. Stephen Nickles. Described by Sampson County, North Carolina Sheriff Jimmy Thornton as a menace to the safety of innocent people, 33-year-old Stephen Thomas Nickles has been charged with 134 crimes since 2010. His latest case stems from an incident that occurred in December 2024 when he was accused of reckless driving just days after being released from a trauma center for a previous accident. Just weeks earlier, Nickles had lost control of his Ford Mustang while doing a burnout at 80 miles per hour. He struck an SUV occupied by a mother and her 2 children, who survived with serious injuries. Nickles was also injured and was airlifted to the hospital where he was placed on a ventilator. Police were unaware that he had been released from the hospital until they began receiving reports about his reckless driving in late December. Nickles is currently facing a slew of charges, which is nothing new, and prosecutors seem to feel defeated by their repeated efforts to hold him accountable for his alleged crimes. So far, the worst punishment he has received in Sampson County was a 45-day jail sentence, and it's probably safe to say that the authorities aren't holding their breath in hopes of a better outcome this time around. Number 5. Marc Coleman. On April 12, 2025, a police officer tried to stop a young man on an ATV in Kansas City, Missouri, later identified as Kendall Coleman. The driver reversed into the officer, knocking him to the ground, then did a wheelie and landed the vehicle on top of the cop. He then fled the wrong way along an interstate, managing to elude law enforcement in the process. After identifying the suspect as Coleman, with help from a Crime Stoppers tip, police stopped at the home of his father, 49-year-old Marc Coleman. No one answered the door, so he left a business card. Marc never got a hold of law enforcement, but was eventually located and brought in for questioning. He admitted that his son had called him and asked him for help on the day of the hit and run, but denied knowing the nature of Kendall's alleged crime. Marc helped Kendall flee to Colorado and is now facing a hindering prosecution charge. Kendall Coleman has been extradited to Missouri and is being held without bond on suspicion of assault, armed criminal action, and aggravated fleeing. Number 4. Liam Nix. While stationed at Fort Liberty in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in August of 2024, 20-year-old U.S. Army soldier Liam Nix was accused of lying on a security clearance application about his involvement in a group dedicated to overthrowing the U.S. government. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Nix recruited members for a white supremacist organization called Patriot Front. Researchers for the non-profit uncovered evidence that he also operated a hate-filled Telegram channel called Appalachian Archives, which was later renamed American Archives. More specifically, Nix allegedly doxed activists and provided sensitive information about journalists who he believed were working against his hate group's interests. He's facing federal charges of making a false statement to the government and dealing in firearms without a license, along with 2 counts of selling a stolen firearm. Nix could face up to 30 years in prison if convicted as charged, but is maintaining his innocence and has denied having ties to any anarchist or hate groups. Number 3. Erik Sickinger. In March of 2025, South Carolina state authorities charged Irmo Town Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Erik Kenneth Sickinger, with an array of disturbing crimes regarding criminal conduct toward a minor. The state launched an investigation into the 42-year-old's alleged crimes at the urging of the Lexington County Sheriff's Department. Sickinger is accused of having non-consensual contact with a teenage boy he met on Snapchat and providing the adolescent with marijuana. Following Sickinger's arrest, Mayor Bill Danielson reassured the public that the allegations are being taken seriously. He further explained that the local police department was uninvolved in the investigation and knew nothing about it until the arrest. Sickinger posted a $200,000 bond following his arrest and was released on a GPS monitor. He's banned from having any contact with the victim amid the ongoing case. Today's topic was inspired by blistering. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Thomas Carpenter. On March 18th, 2025, sheriff's deputies in Putnam County, Florida, pulled over a red Dodge Charger for a traffic violation. The passenger, a 41-year-old, kept falling asleep as law enforcement attempted to converse with him, and there was a noticeable odor of burnt marijuana emanating from within the vehicle, piquing their suspicions that he might be high. When questioned about his drug use, he admitted that he and a female passenger had just smoked marijuana in the vehicle before they were pulled over, which the deputies found especially concerning since there were children in the backseat. While searching the car, police found a bag containing marijuana, drug paraphernalia, Suboxone strips, and suspected methamphetamine. Carpenter had just been released from prison a handful of months earlier after serving a 3-year stint for battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer with violence, fleeing from law enforcement, and other charges. And he would soon be back behind bars at the Putnam County Jail due to the items that were found during the traffic stop. During his arrest, Carpenter reportedly said that there's nothing wrong with drugs. As he was being booked into custody, deputies found 11 small bags of methamphetamine hidden in the front of his underwear, amounting to more than 322 grams of the drug. He was charged with trafficking 14 grams or more of amphetamine or methamphetamine, possession of marijuana with intent to sell or deliver, 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance without a prescription, smuggling contraband into a county detention facility, and 3 counts of drug paraphernalia. Carpenter remains held without bond as he awaits his next court hearing, which is scheduled for July 8th. Number 1. Owen McNett. 50-year-old habitual drunk driver Owen McNett was under the influence while behind the wheel yet again in February 2018 when he blew through a stop sign and T-boned another vehicle at a 3-way intersection in Cypress, Texas. The other driver, 54-year-old Wayne Childers, died from his injuries after McNett's pickup truck plowed into his Buick Verano at 40 miles per hour. A blood test revealed that McNett's blood alcohol content was nearly 4 times the legal limit at the time of the crash. He already had 5 DWI convictions dating back to 1992, with his most recent arrest happening 6 years before the accident in 2012. McNett had previously served prison time for some of his past convictions, including a 6-year term for the 2012 DWI charge. In November 2022, a jury found McNett guilty of felony murder. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison, ensuring he'll stay off the roads for many years to come and possibly for the rest of his life. Thanks for watching. In your book, who is the most hypocritical celebrity and why? Let us know in the comments section below.